Philip, I want to start with you because I know you previously directed a few episodes of The Crown. This is, of course, another big moment in royal history, so to speak. Did you kind of go into this project with that kind of same approach, or was there very much differences with this?
I think what was interesting about this story was its contemporary nature, that it's happening pretty much now. I did the first 2 seasons of The Crown, which happened in the 1950s, which were wonderful to do, and in some ways they were the landscape of our parents' world, and so it was great to go in there. But literally every time you set up a camera, you have to make sure that everything works for the 1950s. So there was something about doing a fresh and a modern story that was really appealing about this, that you could jump in the back of a cab or put Sam McAllister on a bus or something like that and drive down Oxford Street. It was the sort of modernity of the story that I felt was so appealing.
And also, I want to kind of bring you both in here because there were certain lines of yours which were just so sublime. So, for example, there's the scene where Jeffrey Epstein is being arrested on TV, but yet Prince Andrew is more concerned with his teddy bears on the bed. And then there was, of course, the scene where he goes, I don't know why everyone's so interested in my friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. Jimmy Savile's much better. I mean, there was almost like a tongue-in-cheek element here where it's almost so bad it's laughable at times. I mean, was that the tone that you were going for with this? And what do you want viewers to get out of this?
It's such a great question. I think the tone of the film is very important because I think sometimes there's a sense that you either have a serious film or a funny film, and this film mixes the two. I think that some aspects of the story are serious, but some aspects of it are surreal and just strange. And we wanted to capture that mix of the two. And it's something that Rufus does brilliantly. And there's something about the interview itself, the interview with Pizza Express and all of those sort of famous aspects of it. It's just surreal, I suppose. And we wanted to capture that tone.
And Rufus, for you, were there ever parts of this reading the script, because those lines that you delivered were just so brilliant, but were some of those lines, were there parts of this that made you feel uncomfortable about playing Prince Andrew?
Well, I think if you weren't uncomfortable about playing a part like this, then you know, you need to have a serious think, because it's a very difficult line to walk. I read the script, and exactly as Philip said, the tone of it is, it's a very interesting tone, but that's what, the thing that makes it the most difficult line to walk is the thing that's best about it, in my opinion. The reading of it, certainly, and watching it too. I'm very proud of it. You know, that there's something about the enormity and the darkness of the actual subject matter that makes some of the surreal mismatch between what he thinks and the impression he's really making, that is kind of bizarre and sometimes in a dark way funny, you know. Not to take away from the import, but it's how serious it is that makes it like that. We know there is that kind of, that relationship between like dark subjects and humour. And also, you know, what you mentioned about the Jimmy Savile line, that's a joke that he made. So this is someone who, if you see him, as I did a lot of research watching him dealing with the public, he was actually quite good at it, and he was quite funny, alongside the Andrew that we now know from the interview as well.
And kind of going on from that, did you find it hard at times to almost empathise with Andrew as well?
Well, it depends what you mean by empathy. It's not the same as sympathy, you know, it's actually trying to put yourself in a situation of, what do humans do? You know, what do we do in terms of the way, the stories we tell ourselves to get through life? Like, it's not very often that people will say, I am a villain, or often people will say, I'm a good guy, in order to excuse bad things that they do. It can be very, very complex. And Andrew is a strange mixture of guilt, feelings of innocence, and feelings of victimhood, all wrapped up in one. I had a very strong reaction watching the initial interview, and I made my judgments, as humans do. But performing him, it's a matter of trying to see it from his point of view. It's not the same as sympathising, but in order to represent the story better, you have to try to see it through someone's eyes. And then that includes the way they delude themselves.
I mean, was there ever a part of this project for either of you where either you did or did not sweat doing this?
Well, no one ever got to see whether I was sweating because there was latex covering it, so that was very handy. You know.
I mean, it's just brilliant. But also as well, I mean, because this interview in quite a few ways is not just infamous, it's almost now iconic. And I know Gillian has been very open about her initial reservations about playing Emily Maitlis. Did you have reservations playing Prince Andrew? And then going on to you as well, Philip, did you have reservations kind of almost making this and having to remake this because it's so iconic? And not just, as you said, with The Crown, you're working on the first 2 series, so that was a while ago. This is contemporary. This only happened 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, my feeling when I read the script, it was like, as is often the case with things that have an inevitability about them, I read it and I thought, oh no, I'm going to do this. You know? Because instinctively, I had an instinct. For a start, I was very gratified to receive a script that asked me to be an actor, to, not that everything I don't do is a version of, but to what I used to believe, what I came to it for when I went to drama school and my early career was to play really wildly varying characters that are no less far from me than the things that people think I'm natural for. I mean, the stuff that people, the kind of roles that I get cast more often, I don't always do them, aren't any easier for me than something like this, even though it doesn't fit. There's a lot of work that I have to do, but it's the great thing that always made me feel a bit more comfortable about playing Andrew is people aren't expecting me to be good. And that was, it took a lot of weight off. Do you know what I mean? It's like people don't know that I can do this. Not to make any great claims about how well I do it, but like it's not out of my range. But people don't necessarily know that, and I love that feeling.
But also as well, what I loved about this in particular, and especially those interview scenes, is the way in which you see those comic elements, the comic timings. I mean, did you kind of go into this expecting there to be that kind of comic element to it, that kind of so bad it's laughable? And when you shot it, like, what was your aim in actually shooting it and kind of bringing those elements out?
I think it wouldn't work if you were trying to make a comedy. I think it's incidentally funny, or people have their own response to it. Some people will be devastated by some of the things that Andrew said. So it's you don't go into it trying to make a comedy, but in some ways, as Rufus was saying, you're sort of leaning into the reality of the situation, leaning into who this person is, leaning into what makes him tick and the situation itself. I was obviously terrified, about making something like this that exists in the public domain. People know the interview, they know Buckingham Palace, they know the BBC. These are huge institutions. We've got to be inside them and show them convincingly. And then the interview, as you said, it's become an iconic thing. It's the frames from it are all over the internet. And so we worked really hard to try to make something that would work within what people knew, but also to take a different way into it and to tell a different story. I think what drama can do, as distinct to documentary, as distinct to some aspects of real life, is it can put you emotionally inside the headspace of those people and help to understand why they made the decisions they did and why they came to be where they are at that moment. And I feel that that's something that drama can do amazingly, that there have been some wonderful documentaries on this subject already, but I felt what we could do, and what drew me to it, was this sense of, okay, well, we can put you in the room, we can put the audience in the room with these people as it's happening live, and you can understand how they got to this place.
And finally, we're at a time for the royal family. It's a very difficult time for them. Is there any part of you guys that's nervous about bringing this film out at this particular time?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's a different subject, but I think, the idea of what we all try to bring to this is something that is good to remember, whatever the story is that no matter what people's positions are, it's always important to remember they're humans, and I think anything that reminds us of that, and you could, you know, in something like this or in any other kind of news story, it's an easy thing to forget that we're talking about people. I don't mean that as a defense of anyone or anything like that, but just one of the things about the royal family and about famous people is it's very tempting to dehumanize them, and it's important for us to remember that people are fully rounded humans.
I couldn't agree more. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you both today. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.